Loyalty described as, do you care? And I care, and that's why I'm on this show. Comes a time, here we go.
I'm a sucker for Oteil, man. I saw that same feeling that I have, that would he filled a void that I didn't even know existed.
It feels so good to, as Ben said, to try to do something about an issue as opposed to complaining.
If you can't help, don't hurt.
If we could just all get out there and throw cream puffs at each other, maybe things, instead of bullets and angry words, it would be better.
When you stop laughing, you stop living.
There's a worldwide surge in interest in mushrooms.
It was deep, man.
It's not that TM makes your mind quiet down there. It already is. We're just stuck up here. We've lost access.
A Jumpin' Jack Flash came out by the Stones. So I thought, all right, perfect, man. I'm gonna drive. And I started driving through the neighborhood, and I got a text from Mick Jagger.
People saying that, you know, what we do is non-essential. Well, playing those few gigs that you saw me at felt pretty essential to me.
It wasn't like they were clapping from here. It was they were clapping from here.
My view of things is that death is the last and best reward for a life well lived.
Like it's the strangest of places if you look at it right, you know?
If you're liking what you're hearing, head on over to patreon.com/comesatimepod and get your bus pass for an extra episode every week.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Comes a Time. That's Oteil. Where are you today, Oteil? You're above me.
I'm above right, and you're below center.
Perfect.
You're centered today.
Centered, exactly. And it's a good day to be centered. Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And if you're enjoying us, head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Head over to my YouTube channel at Mike Finoia. Oteil's at Oteil Burbridge. Subscribe. We're dropping a bunch of cool videos. Rate, review, share, tell your friends, whoever you think might like the podcast. And join us at patreon.com/comesatimepod for a bonus episode every week. And a lot of great stuff. Eric's over there curating incredible stuff. So I'm going to actually hide my video because I really don't want to look at me today when I'm talking. I don't know if I can handle that. We're going to get into some heavier stuff. So a lot of people, have you been noticing, Oteil, that like a lot of people have been mentioning, like they really enjoy the conversations we have about mental health and about, you know, the vulnerable stuff.
For sure. And they don't mind when we have people on, and like when we had Norwood, I really don't think we talked bass or music.
I know.
Like hardly if at all, you know, like, and nobody was bummed. They really liked it. They were like, you know, you guys are just hanging out, talking it. So of course we get to what we talk about a lot, which is, we talk about it even obviously with each other, but with other people, you know, there's a lot of mental health stuff going on.
And it means a ton when people take the time to reach out and kind of go like, I love what you guys are doing. And thank you so much for doing it. And it's got us through, you know, rough times and all of that. And obviously, look, the pandemic was the pandemic. That's just an unprecedented speed bump that everybody had to go through, right? But a lot of people had stuff prior, me being one of them. And that thing was it was more of like the Great Wall than a speed bump. You know what I mean? Like it was
an amplifier. It just turned everything up. You know? It froze us and then it turned it up and it's like, oh, whoa.
It really did. Whoa. And, you know, for those of you that maybe have never listened to the podcast or whatever, like if you go back, we've always been very open and honest about like mental health stuff. And we had a guest, Amy Cuddy, on not that long ago, who really her episode hit me deep. And it was kind of like I needed to take a minute and kind of like, I want to do what she did on our podcast too, you know? So, and I've been pretty open with, you know, my struggles with mental health and what I've tried to do to like help it and fix it and whatever. And I, in a conversation with you, Oteil, one day I said, I'm ready to do the work. Right. Remember this?
Yeah.
And,
I remember.
And remember the universe said, all right, buddy, you want the work?
You
Well,
said
it. You said it.
This week on You Said.
This week on You Said It. So I just kind of wanted to, like, I thought it was important to use this platform to, like, be honest and talk about it and what I did then and what I'm doing now and how I, 2022 was a horrible, horrible year. It was just absolutely brutal. And the pandemic was the pandemic. And I know 22 was kind of like we were coming out of it and trying to, like, come back to life and figure out what that even meant. Right. Because it's like, maybe for those that have anxiety or depression or panic or whatever, that break we had, someone else made us take that break. So it was kind of not like our laying in bed while the rest of the world, you know what I mean? Like, it was a thing where we all kind of had to pump the brakes and whatever. Right. So coming out of it was difficult because you kind of have to, like, come out of hibernation, and how do you get back to life, and how do you do the things you used to do, and how are you feeling? And
a lot of people weren't ready.
No, yeah.
And I know a couple that still aren't. They're really, they don't feel safe back out, just like being normal again.
Well, maybe this is for them. Like maybe this is something that I've been on and off of medication for depression and anxiety for a long time, like probably since college. And, here and there, do it. I don't do it. I don't follow up with it. And then, and one of the episodes we talked about how I had taken myself off of Lexapro with microdosing. And I kind of wanted to see what I was feeling. Muted. I was feeling nothing on that stuff. And I took myself off of it gradually. I tried microdosing. I tried macro dosing, which was beautiful and profound, but not sustainable. Like, it was a big expansion and then you kind of contract, and it was an expansion and you contract. I had beautiful experiences with a guide where I took a good amount of mushrooms, and we talked up to that moment. She sat with me throughout the entire experience. I purged, like, I let out so much stuff that I didn't even know was still bothering me.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And there were, synchronistic things that happened along with it, and where I did the trips and all of that. Like, for instance, I was, like, at a river doing it, and I got in the car to leave later that night, and I plugged my phone in to play music, and Bob Weir, Only a River, it comes on. And the river was a huge theme in my experience. Huge. And I was just like,
I remember.
So, but it wasn't sustainable. Like, I think that right now with psychedelic medicine and psychedelic healing and anti-medication and all of these different theories and stuff up in the air, I think everyone needs to, and I'm not a medical professional, this is just me. I think I needed to kind of be honest with the fact that I have no idea what is the best thing for me. So trying a lot of different things was part of the process. And not giving up, So one of the big doses I did was great. The other one was not so great. Taking a good amount of mushrooms is like getting on a plane. Like, you might get upgraded to first class, or you might sit in the middle in the last row. Either way, the plane is taken off. So buckle up.
Sorry, you got the baby kicking your seat today.
Exactly. It's going to be what it is, So I had a period of time last year, 2022, where anxiety my whole life has kind of been like imagine like a storm cloud kind of like rolls through, and you can see it, and you can put on your coat, put on your raincoat, go in the house. You address the anxiety. It's always been like that. It's always been sort of at a distance, and I feel it, and it gets, panicky or whatever, and it passes. I had a period last year where, like, a fog rolled in, and it set up camp. Like, it didn't leave. And I had like a very, very, like, deep confusion and sadness, and disorienting kind of feeling where I just had no idea how to get out of it. And that was terrifying. And it started to affect me physically, where I would wake up and literally like be holding on to my bed. I felt like my bed was on the head of a pin. Yeah. And I felt like if I, and that was my first thought when I woke up. And it was just racing thoughts. And I woke up exhausted. Like I was just like for months and months and months, I was just downright exhausted. And I
wonder what your blood pressure was.
Believe it or not.
Because you could just sit there and just be like, it's tiring. Like you say, it's exhausting.
I was completely exhausted. And so if this is reality, right? I would kind of do this what if stuff. So I would kind of like, go, I'm here. And then I'd go, well, what if this? And then I'd set up camp there. Yeah. And the worst case scenario became my frame of reference. And I'm kind of like looking at, okay, like now that's reality, but it's not. It's my distorted. It's like, riding a bike with like one tire loose or something, or like trying to like, it's hard. I'm not calibrated, and it started to get really debilitating, and it started to get like, and I want to say something else that's really important too. Lack of a community is incredibly important in this story too, because I think that like, you spend a lot of time alone during the pandemic. You spend a lot of time like, yes, with Zoom and stuff like that, but there's something about the human connection, right? And
the old way,
right? But that even got weird to the point where like I was going to concerts and I felt uncomfortable. I was like terrified in crowds. Like and I don't even know of what. I was just like extremely uncomfortable.
Well, and COVID for one thing.
Yeah, that totally. Right.
You didn't get it forever,
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And,
but I'm not saying that's all of it, but I'm just like, that was one thing. I was like, But
Oteil, you're right. It's like, that was one thing. And that was a thing that should have been able to just kind of be squelched. But it was that compounded with 5 other things. And it's like, what straw broke the back? I don't know. But it was just this kind of like, this fog was here, it's kind of like, I'm big on analogies, but it's like, if that one doesn't work for you, like, if a little grease fire on the stove is normal anxiety, my house was like up in flames. Yeah. Like I was just like engulfed in it and I couldn't find my way out. And
that's a panicky feeling, man.
It was basically all the hours I was awake was panic, and it was about nothing. I couldn't pinpoint what it was about. It felt like the bottom fell out. And
Can I ask you a question about?
Yeah.
You said when I make a scenario and it's the worst case one, and then I just set up camp there. And I used to do that same thing too, especially I felt like I would never be able to, I can never do this, or I'll never beat this, or I'll never whatever. But now I found more, I do still have that one, but I also have the best case scenario. And then everything in the middle, I'm just like, so I can kind of, like you said, be more, you don't lose perspective, because with the worst, you have the best. But it sounds like maybe, like when you use the grease fire versus the house being on fire, to me, that's just a feeling of panic.
Yes.
The grease fire inside would be a panic.
Of course.
So if the house is on, and is that what keeps you from like being able to look at the best case scenario also? Is it just like obliterate the whole thing? Just take a bowling ball through it or something?
I guess what I could say is, I think it's a great question. And I asked myself that a million times. And I think that at my worst, I didn't even know a best case existed. I didn't even know anything other than the worst case existed. And
I think what best case scenario?
Best case scenario was like not feeling the worst case, to be honest. But I think
I used to be that way too. So I feel you, because I remember when I was like, what best case scenario? Yeah. I hear you.
So I guess, in retrospect, being able to talk about it now, looking back, the thing I'm enjoying right now is I understand that there's a worst case and a best case, but I don't care. Like, I'm okay going this way. And if either happens, exactly. Like, it's not the end of the world. Extremes extremes were the problem. And it just became this kind of like, I just don't know where, again, I can only say it like a cloud rolled in and I kind of, but I was getting to the point where like, I mean, I lost a bunch of weight. I wasn't sleeping well.
Not the good way.
No, not the good way at all. And
diet and exercise. Yeah. Just like worry.
Yeah. Well, I'd feel uncomfortable about even like going into like situations, simple situations, just going to get ice cream with my wife, going to the store, I started to feel just a very uneasy, anxious, but constant feeling. Right. And
so what was it? Sorry, I don't want to keep interrupting, but what would be your best case? Just like an example of your worst case scenario about going to get ice cream. Like what was, that would keep you be like, I don't even want to do, because the ice cream shop could go blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, the ice cream shop could go like it was a lack of trust in humanity, a lack of trust in the unknown. I think really what it boiled down to, it was like elements that I couldn't control were overwhelming. Like I really do think that that's why I mean, like it could have been the grocery store, it could have been ice cream. It was just
walk out the front door, then
unknown thing. Yeah, and it wasn't a specific. That's the thing that was terrifying. It's like it wasn't like if I go to X, then Y might happen. If I go to the airport, the plane may crash. If I go to this, someone might shoot the place up. No, none of that. That would have been easier. This was just like overwhelming. That's what I mean by like I was clouded and I had no idea. So I knew something had to be done. And I searched and searched and searched for a therapist. And God bless my wife. And, I mean,
she's great, man.
She sat through and she was, it was terrifying for a while. And I'm going to say I wasn't suicidal, but I was very tired of living because life was exhausting. I mean, I was like downright, like just spent, dude. I was spent. And it was every thought had 100-pound weight on it. Like every what if had 100-pound weight on it. Everything was heavy. And that's what made me so like exhausted and tired and all of that. So I had to kind of surrender and really kind of just be like, you know what? Something's not working and I'm not sure what to do. And I did some research and I found a doctor and I made an appointment to go talk to her. And prior to going, and this is something that maybe if people have gone to therapy or gone to talk to, doctors or whatever, the first time you go, it's always, so tell me about yourself. So what I did was the night before I went, I wanted to beat them to the punch with that. So I sat down and I wrote about myself and I made a timeline of all of the stuff that I've gone through and all of the things that I've experienced and all the emotions that, like things that maybe I wanted to just give her everything and be like, I'm not holding anything back. Just, this is everything. And like 4 pages later, dude, I'm like just sobbing and bawling. And I'm just like just looking back on like my life. And it was a lot. It's been a lot and it's a lot still. So I told her my goals and it was like, I just want to be happy. I just want to be, okay with me, and I didn't have a reason not to be, but I just wanted to be okay, and that's all I wanted was just to be okay. And I went to visit this doctor and I was scared to death, just to taking a step into, it's kind of like there's like the devil the devil you don't kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I know this feeling, and I know I'm used to it now. I'm used to waking up at 4 a.m. with like gripping my bed. Okay. Like, why?
Yeah.
So I went to talk to her. She was the most unbelievably kind person. And we went through, like what I've wrote down and everything. And basically she said that, I have, and I knew this, but it's like I have a depressive disorder thing, right? And anxiety and focus and all of these other things and panic are like byproducts of the fact that like untreated depression, essentially.
Yeah.
So if you're fighting something, it's hard to focus on writing. It's hard to focus on whatever. It's hard, which makes it weird. Like, but somehow I could do stand up, which is whatever. But it's interesting that I can like.
It says something about the creative process.
Yeah.
All these other things you cannot do, but something creative you can do. Don't know why or whatever, but I too am grateful.
Yeah. It's really strange, isn't it? So
it is.
So I kind of just like put myself in her. I was just like, and she's a psychiatrist and she does like a lot of other stuff and mindfulness and all of that. So when we got together and we talked, and just to back up to give everybody like what happens, you essentially have to take kind of like and I did this throughout my experiences with her. You take a questionnaire and it's like a 7 or 8 question thing that the answers are like never, several days, half the days, nearly every day, or constant, right? And you basically answer these questions, and that's where they kind of figure out like where you're at and your progress and your whatever. So, and the questions were like, I can't control my worries. I'm restless. I'm this, I'm that. Like, I feel like I'd be better off like, dead.
You're just checking off all the time.
Can you add more?
Constant.
Yeah. So it was, so she's like, okay. She's like, you're, it was pretty severe, but what separated her from other people that I've seen was that she took the time she goes, let me explain what's going on with you. And she had the ability to kind of like, it's chemical stuff. And it's did I do this to myself with too much partying, too much drinking, too much,
who knows,
banging my head against shit growing up, whatever, like, who knows? But the point is like, I bet it's half nature, half nurture, whatever, but it's now, and it's what I have to deal with.
Here it is.
And I told her how I'd experienced, psychedelics and how the profound moments and transcendence and meditating and all of the things that I've done were always, okay, so you said earlier, here's the best case scenario. When I'm doing TM, when I'm in a float tank, when I'm exercising, when I'm on stage, when I'm on mushrooms, when like all these things, I'm over here.
There's the best case scenario.
Best case scenario. So that's where I'm kind of like, I would love to be able to live here as much as I possibly can, So she said to me, have you ever heard of ketamine therapy for depression? And I had heard of it, and I obviously, like kind of did some research on it and stuff like that. And I talked to my wife about it, and she's like, yeah, it's like it's done. It's used in anesthesia. It's used in this, it's used in that, but it's definitely something that's regularly used. So
dosage again.
Essentially what it is it's a fast acting antidepressant, and it's something that works on a whole other system than your serotonin. It's like another, it's essentially like kind of rewiring or like reactivating certain parts of your brain, I guess. I don't know a ton about it, but it's so here's, she says, here's what I think might be the best for you is like, we're doing it's a ketamine treatment where you go in twice a week for the first 4 weeks and you get intravenous ketamine, and it's about 90 minutes per session. And you then, kind of we talk throughout it, and also not throughout the treatment, but afterwards and stuff. And then afterwards, if it's working, to continue it, periodically down the road or whatever, So she shows me around the place, and there's these like 8 rooms that have leather recliners that like are massage chairs that like they're each kind of pot like little one-off things. And in the middle is like a control panel where she kind of sits and monitors your blood pressure and your pulse and all that stuff. There's a room before you go into that where you sit down and you get the port put in your hand.
Yeah.
And then you get walked over and you know, and then there's one room in the back that I'll tell you about in a sec. So I walk around and I'm like, okay. So I talk to my wife. I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, I get an appointment. She refers me to a cognitive behavioral therapist, someone who's like just a talk therapy. So I did these in tandem, still do. And I go to get my first day. I'm scared to death. Okay. Like I'm very nervous. I hate needles.
Worst case scenario is just go like gangbusters today.
Dude. And also Oteil, I'm kind of also like, if this doesn't work, I don't know what the hell else. I'm out of options. I'm getting needles now. I hate needles. So I'm sitting in the waiting room and I'm kind of like, whatever. I have my music ready to go. I walk into the first room. I sit in the medical chair and it's dead silent. Okay. And they take my blood pressure and they're checking my weight and all that stuff. And I sit down and they put the port in my hand, and all of a sudden 1,000 staticky televisions circle in my head, and I black out. No ketamine. The needle in my hand. I black out. I hit the floor.
So much anxiety. It was just like,
well, it turns out I have a thing called vasovagal, which is where your blood pressure spikes super high and then drops and you can faint. So like if I get up quick, I get like, so if you get lightheaded, it's just a thing. Yeah. So it's just like, there have been times where I'm like in Home Depot looking at the bottom shelf for paint and I like get up too quick and it's like, woo, a little spotty. It's just a thing that, so she goes, okay, what are we going to do here? So that room way in the back that I was going to tell you about, that didn't have a recliner. It had a hospital bed.
Like a strap you in, like
no, not strap you in. It's not that bad, but it's a bed. It's like, so you lay down, and she would do she would do the ketamine, like the IV at the bed. So I'm like cracking up, like I can't even heal right. Like, this is just so ridiculous. Like I'm not. So it's funny to like, laugh about it now, but at the time I'm like laying on the ground, like I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Like I'm apologizing because I hit the ground.
It's like, get room B ready.
Yep, they basically did. So I went in and I had my music. Just a mess. And now I'm at the worst.
I gotta ask, what do you have on?
Clothes wise?
No, music? The music.
Oh, well, I had Oteil and Friends at no, I'm kidding. I had a instrumental. I had a like classical, like ambient classical with acoustic guitar.
Nice.
I went twice a week for 5 weeks or 4 weeks, every Monday and Thursday or something like that. And it took me a while to tinker with the music, but I ended up with this like acoustic, just basically classical acoustic guitar was kind of my, now the experience I felt with the ketamine was, you get it and you kind of lay there. And it's 90 minutes. And the first 45 minutes is when the ketamine's kind of doing its thing. And I found initially that it's a disassociative, it's lucid. You're lucid. You're kind of like, you're not in your body, but you are. Okay. Like I could pop out if I had to. It's not like tripping for hours and hours or anything like that. It's more of kind of like I don't know. Like I guess it feels like you're inside of a helium balloon or something. Like it's very like floaty but visual, definitely hallucinations, but not anything, really? but not, I was having experiences on the ketamine where I was seeing music, number one, totally.
Wow.
My sensory stuff was all off. But I wasn't scared of anything. But what I noticed was the things that I would, if I was experiencing these things in real life, like in regular day, like at one point I felt like I was kind of hanging upside down, and I was like traveling towards, like, it was almost kind of like a waterfall of sand. And I was like, I'm going to crash into this and I'm going to die. But I couldn't do anything. I'm like, just go with it. It was teaching me to, like, you don't have control over everything. Just go. And I would just kind of like float right through that like wall of sand, and I'd be on the other side of it. Like, I'm okay. There were times where I felt like I was trapped in between two things, and I get claustrophobic.
Yeah.
So it was like the fears I had, I felt like I was addressing them in this experience, and then I'd come out of it and I don't feel as claustrophobic as I did.
Interesting.
So interesting stuff. Like, and it was kind of like very disassociative and very, I would always come to this kind of like, oh yeah, like it made me, to summarize, it made me like, none of this matters. Like, none of this matters. And love is all that matters. And I would be like happy, and I'd be, I'd come out of it and kind of like, now in the very beginning that, she told me, very honest. She's like, it's not, this isn't like you're healed.
Yeah.
So I'd come out of it, and that, anxiety and panic and shit that I was dealing with would kind of creep back up eventually.
Yeah.
That's why you go a bunch of times in a row, like, and then after that you go a little by little. And you have to take an Uber there. You can't drive there. So there's like that whole thing, like I get in the Uber panicky. I leave like my head out the window, like, I love everyone, and I'd, go talk to the therapist and all of that. And they made me comfortable in the fact that, like, I'm not going crazy. Like, this is a thing. You're going through an episode. Like, this is like and they were like, you probably should try another medication. Like, you really probably should try another medication. They said
the other one's not working.
Treatment resistant depression is essentially where you have like 3 or 4 different ones that you try, and they don't work. And I've tried Lexapro, I've tried Paxil, I've tried Wellbutrin, I've tried all these different ones, right? And it was just, the side effects were just vicious, dude. Sweating through my clothes.
Yeah,
like,
I've watched that stuff before.
It's rough, dude. It's really rough. So, but I was having sort of like obsessive thinking, and I was having the depression and the anxiety and the panic and the inability to focus and all that stuff. And they said, you should try Zoloft. They're like, you should really try it. And I think it might be perfect for you. And I'm going to say right now that stuff saved my life. Like, I'm on it, and it's great, and it's perfect for me. And
you tried all those, but not Zoloft.
Well, and it's just interesting that like it took, and one of the reasons why I want to talk about this is because it's like, it's okay to do that. Like, it's okay to, like, the thing that's good about and ketamine's a psychedelic, it's classified under like a psychedelic medicine, but it's like, you could take that while taking an SSRI, where, mushrooms and psychedelics and MDMA and all that, it's either muting the psychedelic or it's dangerous because it's too much serotonin and all that other stuff. But it took me a while to agree to do it. It really took me a while. Like, I didn't want to do it. And I'm kind of like, not again, like not another. And also just because I was kind of just losing hope in medicine. Do you know what I mean? But I had to follow their guidance, and, talking to my wife about it and stuff like that. And
well, that's stepping into the unknown too.
It totally is.
Well, let's try it.
Right. And
what else? Me, I'm like, hey man, I'll try it. What else? What do you got to lose at this point?
And it's just, what's kind of interesting, man, is that like little by little, I started to go back to center. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like the Buddhists talk about, we don't even want too much happiness.
I just
wanted to feel right in between here and here. Like, can I just be good?
Yeah. And with the talk therapy and with now cognitive behavioral therapy is a thing where there's homework. Like you don't just go talk to someone and they go, all right, see you tomorrow. You work out, why do I feel this way? Is there any rationality to this fear I have? Is there?
Let's examine it,
dude. Literally like a worksheet, and then you write something down. If you're feeling something, you write it down, and you go like, "What are the odds from 1 to 100? Like, what are the odds that this is real? What evidence do I have to support this? What is the counter evidence? You know, things like
why am
that."
That's why I'm saying. Like worst case, best. Exactly. There's got to be something. You nailed it. You said I don't have perspective.
No, you don't.
It's all in the one side.
So for that fire in the house analogy, right now the fire trucks arrived and they're starting to put the fire out. You know what I mean? Like I'm starting to kind of like assess the damage.
Fire. Yeah, you can see the fire is going to be put out.
Yes, the structure, the beams are fine. The house has good bones, but it's like we're going to take a little bit of like time to repair this thing. You know,
the firemen are winning.
And what I started to notice, dude, and it's so weird, is that tiny, simple circumstances that used to bug me out and freak me out when I was in this little like kind of freak out weren't even afterwards. I'd be like, oh, I just did that. And it didn't bother me. And I remember like going on stage. I went on stage a little bit when I was feeling really bad. And I'd like run to my car afterwards and just go home. Like I just felt and I justify it with whatever, but I was just socially anxious. I didn't want to talk to him because I felt like it was all over my face how shitty I was feeling or how anxious I was feeling. But then I'd be like, why didn't you stay and talk to? There's always a post-game show in my head that was like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do this? Instead of just like, hey, I'm human, you know, like fucking. So
I couldn't deal.
I couldn't deal with it.
I allow myself to have like, I can't deal.
Yeah. I know.
Time it's like with kids, then you have to deal. But good for you, man. Good for you. Seriously.
So it's just been, you know, I stayed with. I'm still, you know, it's a process, right? So I still go for the periodic ketamine treatment, and I am, you know, doing the therapy and whatever, and it's never going to go away. But here's the thing. You try to surround yourself with happy stuff. You try to surround yourself with whatever to try to find that quote or that thing that kind of like nails it for you. You know what I mean? Like we all have that kind of like whatever, right? I'm driving to New York. It's hilarious. Driving to New York to do a show. I think I texted you this at this point, but like, I'm listening to an interview. Mark Maron on WTF interviews Rosie Perez. Okay.
I love that interview, man.
Remember I sent it to you? Yeah. So this is about where this, so just to give
that interview.
Yeah. So just to give you, cause I talked to you kind of throughout the whole thing, but I didn't want to, you know, it's hard to talk about this shit at the time. She said, okay, so I'm driving on the West Side Highway in Manhattan and I'm listening to this interview and her life, God, what a crazy story. But she said, she was talking to a therapist and the therapist said, when you first came here, you were like barely treading water in the ocean.
That's right.
And then that ocean turned into a lake, and that lake turned into a pond, and that pond turned into a river. And now that river is a puddle. We got it down to a puddle. And Rosie Perez goes, well, when can we get rid of the fucking puddle? And the doctor goes, you're not going to. The puddle's always going to be there, but you can manage the puddle.
Yeah.
You can manage the puddle. You're not going to drown in the puddle. And I pulled over.
Yeah.
And I just like, it was like, I just started like wailing because I felt good.
Yeah.
And I was like,
acceptance of this
I'm
trip.
Like, I understand that I have a puddle that's never going to dry. And it's okay though. But now it's kind of like
all of us do.
That's the thing. But when you don't know how to navigate that, and I had, you know, I mean, there's perfectly valid reasons for a lot of it wasn't all imaginary. I had some messed up shit go down in my life. What's up, everybody? This is Mike, and today's show is sponsored by Sunset Lake CBD, a Vermont hemp farm crafting affordable CBD products designed to help with stress and sleep without breaking the bank.
Sunset Lake CBD is a majority employee-owned hemp farm located just outside of one of our favorite places, Burlington, Vermont. For years, Sunset Lake was a dairy farm producing milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. We had them on the podcast. In 2019, they diversified and started growing hemp for CBD.
And Sunset Lake CBD crafts products with hemp grown on their family farm and ships them directly to the customer, cutting out all the cost associated with getting on the shelves at stores. They have CBD products for every occasion and offer tinctures, salves, edibles, coffee, smokables, and even for that anxious dog of yours, they have pet products.
Ooh, I need to get some for my dog that's barking all the time. But I'll tell you this, I use these. The Sour Bears.
So good.
They are CBD gummies. I literally, no joke, I take these every night. They help me sleep. And it's almost bedtime.
Yep. And I still, as said it before, I'll say it again. You go to a long show, you come home, my 42-year-old ankles are not what they used to be. And I rub that salve all over them and put them up, enjoy a nice cocktail, and just let it ooze right into those sore bones. And you know what, folks? All you Comes a Time fans, if you check them out at sunsetlakecbd.com and use promo code TIME, T-I-M-E, you'll get 20% off all products. That's sunsetlakecbd.com. Use promo code TIME, 20% off all products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer-owned, Vermont-grown. Thank you.
Get you some. Parts of your story was that you said the fog comes in and I don't know where it comes from. Well, when you wrote down that 4 pages of shit, my first thought was, well, now we know where the fog comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely. And I think that a lot of
it, honestly, man, that shit was real.
And I had to deal with it. And the thing was that, like, you know, I got overwhelmed by it. And I've,
of course you did. When it happened, you were at your most vulnerable, a child.
Yeah. And then it resurfaces again. You know, I had I moved a million times when I was a kid. My folks split when I was very young, 2 months old, and then got back together when I was like 7 or 8 and had 3 more kids. So I was kind of like, oh, that's the family, you know, or kind of whatever. And you get your perception is what it is. And I kind of felt like I had to just, I joked my way through it. And I did whatever I had to do to kind of, like, you know, survive. And that's fine. I'm not, you know, pointing fingers. Life is life. It is what it is. But it was like the pandemic. Yeah. I had been running from
it all
stuff. Well, it was like a 5-car pileup.
Yeah.
It's like I'd been in a car chase my whole life. And then at the pandemic, we had a big 5-car pileup. And now I have to, like, assess the wreckage. And I kind of have to, like, clean up the scene, or, you know what I mean? Like, and it was
4
just
pages,
too much.
4 pages of assessment.
Too much to handle. And I was doing it alone. And I guess the reason why I want to talk about it is because now I can look back and see that person that I didn't know how to get. Dude, I didn't know what to do. I really genuinely had no idea. There was like a handful of people that I turned to, and I was like, I'm not doing good. I'm really, really not doing good. And they helped me. And I think that these kind of things, these clouds, these fires in our house, they happen to people, and we don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to happen, but they happen. And I felt so alone, dude. I felt so, people are writing to us. Meanwhile, we're doing the podcast throughout. And I'm like, getting messages from people that are like, you guys, thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable. And I'm like, if they only knew, like the shit that I'm going, like, but it's just,
you were being open. It's just in degrees.
I couldn't do it at the time.
They didn't
I
know
wouldn't
the
been able to
degree
handle
was
it.
this little. Yeah.
Well,
But,
Amy Cuddy
I mean,
comes on and talks about where she was like at, and I'm like, kind of, it's time to
and
just.
that was powerful because that was the first time that she shared it.
Exactly.
On our podcast. I was like, whoa.
I hung up and called you.
Moment. Yeah.
We stopped and I called you right away, and I was like, dude, that one. And I called her, and I was on the road recently, and I talked to her for like a couple hours just to chat, and just, but I guess the thing is this, like, I just kind of want people to know that, if you're doing something and you feel like it's not working, or if you feel alone or whatever, I think that the medicines are medicines, that talk to a doctor about that stuff. Talk to a doctor about that stuff and get a plan together that's best for you. It took me 10 medications to find out that. And what's nice about what I'm taking now is that it's kind of like there are positive side effects that I'm like, oh, wow, I don't even worry about being late anymore. Before I had to be an hour early to everything or else I was wrong. You know what I mean? Like dumb shit where I'm like, oh, I might be on time. Though. I might not. Hey, like, man, who fucking cares?
If you could take 4 or 5 dumb shit things off the plate,
great. It makes everything easier.
It's like one big thing that got taken off, like.
Exactly, dude.
I'm take it.
Right. And I guess just don't give up on the fact man. That, all of that. But also I have to say that the 3 most important things, from the mushrooms to the ketamine to the talk therapy and all that stuff and from our conversations, dude, a couple in particular, the things that I have held on to are basically there's love and fear. Like that's like, for me, there's only 2. There's love and fear. And if you're, and I've said that a million times on the podcast, but if you're operating from love, fear it's there, but it can't stand a chance of taking over. And if you're living from fear, it's hard to acknowledge and even sometimes feel any love. So that's important. The second thing is time, putting time in between yourself and your reactions, your actions, I think about how many people take their own lives that are maybe a phone call would have made the difference. Maybe a day of taking a walk. I don't know, anything. You never know what's going to happen.
I think it certainly would have, but we're emotional creatures and we act and react emotionally sometimes. And that's that, sometimes it's more extreme.
No, of course. And I can say in this whole, whatever, I never would have, there were times where I was just too tired, man. I was just like, this is like, I'm so exhausted and I don't know how to, it was like, I was just like under like quicksand or something. And then the third thing I think that's the most, important thing I realized was just community, find your community. And if you don't, there were times where I was so lost and I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. I just started volunteering at like a food shelter and just being around other people, like that to me felt safe. Like I was just able to go like do that for other people and whatever, and
service is such a I always say the most powerful magic and it's love, and service is like the highest form of that because you're just giving of yourself.
Yeah.
Your time, absolutely. your life, you're giving up your life to do, or that portion of it,
Yeah.
And it helps. It's really healing.
Yeah. No, it totally
really
is.
Healing.
And
it's magic.
It really is. And it's this thing of kind of like I'm very grateful that I can like look back and things got heavy, man. Things got heavy and it's a lot lighter, and things will get heavy, and things are going to get heavy, but you know what? It's not all here or all there. It's like,
well, it's a contraction. It's just like a sine wave, just like when they hook your heart up,
Yeah.
And so winter has to come. It's coming.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no avoiding winter. If your puddle does dry all the way up, it's gonna rain and come back. You know, like there's no.
Don't put away your umbrella just yet.
I mean, we just but if we can like be wise enough, and sometimes you just have, it takes that experience of living, and if you're lucky enough to make it to being older, then you go, okay, I can get through it when it rains. Like we get through full on hurricanes down here. We're like, is this it? You know?
Yeah. No, totally.
So that's life. That's life, you know? And when you do have the bad stuff, you like really, all the time, like anytime, I'm not sick right now. I don't have a sore throat. I don't have the flu. I'm just normal.
Yeah.
Which I used to be very just dark. I'm like, dude, you ain't sick right now. You got food in the kids are happy. Jess is happy.
Yeah.
Like, so if I'm just like nothing, great. You know, like let's celebrate.
And dude, it's so funny that you say that, like nothing. That's something that I think if you get it, you get it. And if you don't get it, you're like, what do you mean nothing? Because I was like, I've said in the past, like all I want is for it doesn't matter. I just want to be able to like to go to a thing that I like a roadblock or whatever and just go, it doesn't matter, instead of going, fuck, like what now? You know, it doesn't matter. And I can't tell you how much looking back on my life, I just tried so hard to feel nothing and I couldn't not feel something. So I think like, you know, for decades, I always had Xanax around. And I would have a Xanax and a couple beers kind of regularly, dude. And that was my sort of like getting to, that was just to kind of like get, maintain, just to kind of get like a, you know, up to surface kind of, you know, and it was an easy,
not up, get you, not below zero, just to get like this.
Dude, I carried a Xanax in my pocket of my jean, you know, that little coin pocket.
I remember you said that one time and I was like, man, he's serious about that shit. Like,
well, it was just like, and I'll tell you what, well, it was just
I thought it was in case you had an emergency. It was like an emergency case so you have a panic attack.
It was, but you know how much I never took it. I just knew it was there. Yeah. And that made me feel better, which is like, that's weird. You know what I mean?
No,
but
I don't think that's weird at all. I think that's actually very sane.
Oh, totally.
Because you go like, I know I could take it. So I'm cool. I'm not there yet. You know, I do that with, but it was when Nigel was born, he had all this fluid in his lungs and we were in the NICU for 4 days and they can't say, we're not sure if he's going to die. They can't say he's not going to die. Right. So I just take it to that. That's my Xanax in my pocket.
Yeah.
I go, well, it's not that dire.
Right.
And I always have it there, like, and believe it, it's in my pocket all the time. It's scarred and you know, it's a
before I put my jeans in the laundry, I'm like, oh, let me get my I call it my pocket Xanax. I'm like, let me in my pocket. My pants have to take their medicine.
But I don't think that's weird, man.
No. But what I thought was weird, but what I mean by what I thought was weird was that even knowing it was there lowered the And throughout this thing, I'm trying to like take a look at what is that a good thing? You know what I mean? And I'm talking to this doctor and she's like, benzos are not good. They're like, you get rebound anxiety from that stuff. And I'll tell you what, during the pandemic, man, I was taking a lot of it. And before the
so you were compounding
during stand up, I was taking, I mean, like in the beginning of I mean, it was hard, dude. It was like
you were compounding your anxiety
without even by trying to fix it. You know what I mean? So it was kind of almost like just to get comfortable going and talking or getting, you know, whatever, like, you know, a Xanax and a beer or two was kind of like my warm blanket. That was my Quaalude or whatever. You know what I mean?
Builds up and then you have the rebound.
I was just doing what I had to do, but I drank like a fish in the past. I would do I would do whatever. And it was all just to kind of, you know, I realize now that was kind of like my self-medicating or whatever. Right. So everybody's trying to do the thing, whatever they can do to feel better or whatever. And I'm not like, this isn't some sob story. I wanted to like, kind of like, I'm fine. I'm good. And things will go down, things will go up, whatever. It's, but I had to hit a weird bottom.
We all
to
do,
kind of realize like, but meanwhile, through talking with us, that's why some of these podcasts were
lifesavers, man.
Yeah, but also heavy. Like I would hang up and go like, oh shit,
The
and
life's heavy shit.
It really is, dude. And I just felt like, we talked about a ton of this stuff way back, and I was kind of poo-pooing, medicine's not good for you. For me personally, and again, I'm not a doctor.
Well, the benzos aren't.
They're not. Yeah, exactly. Maybe on a flight or something, fine. But depression and anxiety and all that stuff is a real thing, and men deal with it and women deal with it, and we have to be okay talking about it. And I'm so inspired by, the Gary Gulmans and the, Amy Cuddy's of the world and stuff like that. So,
and the Mike Finoias.
Thanks. Well, I got through last year, and I kind of wanted to.
Damn right, brother.
Talk about it. You know what I mean? So I guess just,
really, to everybody who's made it, a lot of us didn't, here's to those of us that like made it through, man. And especially that are willing to be brave. Because when you have that kind of fear of the unknown, telling people about it's about the worst. That's in there in the worst case scenario. Oh, great. Now you just told them. Oh, good. That's good.
Now you're going to be judged.
Now you told everybody. Yeah.
And I guess the whole thing is kind of like, my answer to that is like, what are you afraid of? What am I afraid of? Like, it's okay. Like things, life gets too heavy at times. And it's just like, like how many people are walking around holding this in, and that's going to kill them. You know what I'm saying? Like how many people are I care so goddamn much about people that I don't know. And I wish, I'm learning to care about myself maybe a little bit as much, but I really, really don't like hearing stories of people that can't handle what they're going through or felt like they had nobody to turn. It pisses me off that like, we could treat our cars better than we treat ourselves sometimes, whatever. But it's just this thing of kind of like, everybody should be like able to talk about the shit that they've gone through. Because look, if I got like in a car accident and you could visibly see what happened to me, we'd be okay talking about it. If I got attacked by a mountain lion and I had a scar across, like we'd go, oh, what's like, that? Oh
my God, are you okay?
Yeah.
And they would come check on you all the time until the scar,
Yeah. And it's just, like, and I'm incredibly proud and happy of, for the fact that like mental health is being talked about way more, but like psychedelic medicine and all that other stuff, like ketamine, that it worked for me. And it's something I never in a million years would have thought. You get a needle and no way.
How are you supposed to know? Therapy, ketamine, Zoloft.
Yeah.
All right. That's a 3-pronged thing. One of which was not even, when was ketamine even allowed?
Apparently a while ago, but I didn't know about it. But yeah, it's like it's a newer thing.
Our awareness of it is new.
Exactly. I didn't know much about it, dude. But then I
thought it was illegal. I thought it was Schedule 1, like heroin, and
it's FDA approved, and it's there's a whole. But the thing that's cool about it is a doctor's administering it, and it's I'm not doing it in a parking lot. I'm not which hey, do whatever you want to do. I'm past that time in my life, but it's like for me, for this, it expedited the process. You know what I'm saying? And fuck it, I don't care. I'm on an antidepressant, and it's working. And it's,
hey man,
and I got nothing to fucking, whatever. I got nothing to apologize about. And
the key is, are you depressed anymore?
No, I mean, it's kind of, and it's thing you get down, you get whatever, but I mean, and everything, life is difficult. And coming out of, I think the pandemic was whatever it was, but coming out of it and figuring out how to, whatever, be a person again or whatever. It was.
I think
tough.
Everybody has changed there is no going back. Because there never is anyway. You're going forward whether you want to or not. You can delude yourself however you want to, and that delusion bangs up against reality, and that's why it doesn't work. Yeah. So you're already going. So we're not going back to anything.
No.
And thank God. I mean, I want to be going forward better.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And you are, man. And I think hopefully this will really encourage a lot of other people to like seek the community. Don't give up. Try something new. Step into the unknown. Try something that, keep trying. It doesn't work. Keep trying. Keep moving forward.
And I think that there's sometimes we have these like periods of desperation. And if you have anxiety or you have panic or you have an inability to focus or depression, things seem like it's like when you have a pimple, right? You go, all anybody could see is this pimple. I have
my head. My head's with the magnifying mirror.
Exactly. That's what I mean. And you're like, and then you walk out of the house and you're like, my head is like the moon. Like everyone sees my pimple, right? But people are walking by you and they see this beautiful smiling face. Who cares about your stupid pimple, right? And then you get home and you're like, oh, nobody I didn't die. Nobody laughed at me. Like, I'm fine. I got a fucking pimple. And in 2 days, it's gone. The point is that when you are in a period of panic or anxiety or whatever, you're like, if I don't do something, I don't have control over it. I don't have whatever. It's taken on my, I think one of the things that, to echo what I said earlier, like putting time, give it a day.
Yeah.
Give it a week. Give it a put some, it's okay. Write it down instead of just like
write it down,
some space,
and set it down.
And give yourself a little bit of all right, like let's fucking go whatever, but I think that I think it's, dude, I genuinely I love you to death, man. You're like a brother to me, and you're
same here, man.
Someone who I've been able to kind of call and bullshit with and whatever. And just even if it wasn't about heavy shit, it's just just to know that you were my community for a good part of this thing, man. So
dude, the pandemic, we really doing this, and the relationship we developed from doing this. I mean, it was just that's why the podcast is so good, because it just is, it's real. It's what that's what we did in the pandemic. We just did it on camera also.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the coolest thing I think about your whole story is that you back in your story, you said, I just joked my way through it. And I was like, that was somehow at the bottom of your panic, your bottom line. It was a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
And that's why you're able to do it on stage, no matter how bad it gets. And it's the same with musicians, man. You're like, that guy's playing so good, and he just killed himself. Like, what? Do you see what he did the day before? Like, what?
Yeah.
And
that's interesting. That's a very
we had that happen with Neil Casal.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking about right now.
Me and him and Nigel sitting, and Nigel was cutting up, and we were all just smiling so big, and Neil had this big smile. I posted it, and but that's why, because whenever this thing happened to us, we would go to our guitar or we would joke our way through it.
Yeah.
So there's something magic about that, like service and love. And there's something magic about it that kept us able to hold on. And so people find that thing too, whatever that thing that, if you could put a good coping mechanism in there instead of, you already had it, you had the joking. But we were also I was using alcohol and sex. And you're using Xanax and beer.
Yeah.
Somebody's using gambling and food or whatever.
Whatever. Yeah, totally.
If you could find this good one, like comedy or music or something creative, because that creative thing is maybe that's like let's sleep on it. Like I'll do this until the world, till my brain gets back to being able to cope again,
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. 100%. And it's funny to
superpower out of it.
What's interesting is like, I look back, like I'll give you an example of like when I was a kid, I remember I was on the school bus and my friend, I moved into a newer we moved a lot and I moved into a new neighborhood and we were joking around on the bus and I remember feeling good. Like I felt happy, fun, whatever, like breaking balls, had friends. And a girl on the bus goes, "You're moving?" And I looked at my house and there was a for sale sign in the front yard and I didn't know we were moving. So like, I kind of had to like,
I guess
we're moving. Right. So immediately, dude, I had to go into like survival mode, protection mode, whatever. So I was like, yeah, this neighborhood sucks and I hate all of you. I'm like, obviously I'm going to move like this, who wants to live around you idiots? And I became like, I started like doing like whatever, like just defensive, joking, ball breaking, but being kind of brutal. And just to not like, meanwhile, my lips quivering. Right. So like I get off and I'm like, we're moving. And it's like, yeah, we're moving. So that was just kind of like that defense thing where I was trying to like joke around, but be me. I look back on a situation like that where I'm kind of like, yeah, that's where that shit started. That's when I started to have to kind of like just put up that armor and like how we talked to Richard Schwartz, right? About family systems and all that stuff, where it's like you put up these walls at different times in your life that kept you safe. But no one ever goes and tells those security guys, like, it's okay, I'm not 8 years old anymore. Like you can punch out. So then when something happens, you kind of go right to that default mechanism, like defense mechanism. And then it throws you all off kilter and shit. So it's funny to kind of think about that. Like, yeah, maybe that was there from way back. And then going on stage and being able to
like, that's incoming. Like you're on a bus, someone goes, "You're moving." And all of a sudden it's like
immediately like react.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, I got to duck this. Like, well, I'm moving. That's a lot to, again.
I think I was 9 or 10. So it's kind of like all right. And then you just sort of have to adjust. But that's, again, it's life.
And life is going to keep doing that. So then when you're like, you've already had it a lot. And then you're always like this, and then life just throws you whatever. It's random, you
don't trust
shit that's going to come. You're like, I knew it.
Well, and that's the thing. You kind of learn not to trust.
PTSD.
Yeah. Why get comfortable is something I always said to myself. It's like, why get comfortable? And then I went on the road and followed a band around for how many years, like going from place to place, stand up. I travel. Like there's all this, like, I was living in New York and my wife was living in another place, but we were happily, like everything was so like dented, but also it felt right or whatever. I don't know.
I was the same way. And that took me the longest time to answer that question. Why get comfortable? And now the answer is right here, because I might enjoy 5 minutes of comfort.
I know.
After all the time I felt being uncomfortable, if I could get 5, I will celebrate.
Yeah.
I'll raise a toast. And then sometimes you could get like a whole day.
Yeah.
A good portion of a day. And then maybe the kids will do something and then it'll just screw it all up. And then they'll do something like 5 times as amazing.
Yep.
And it'll like wipe over that little speed bump so you just like take it all, and it's the greatest movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you can
enjoy it. If you could sit in your seat for that long.
If you can believe that you deserve to enjoy it. Everybody deserves 5 minutes of comfort.
Yeah. I know. It's really interesting. And it's, and I just
I'm glad to see you have it, man.
Thanks, brother. And I didn't want to like, I hope that this isn't like a downer for anybody. I just hope that this is more of kind of like I just want everybody to know that like, don't give up and don't like, like there's not, I mean, people have had it way worse. and people will have it way worse. And people, I'm not, pointing fingers or blaming anybody or whatever. I've made tons of mistakes in my life, but I'm not going to let them ruin me. And I'm not going to, I'm just going to try to move forward. And I think that, as we see life kind of becoming more and more, what do you call it? Apocalyptic, comic bookish, like everything's shit.
It's even more urgent for us to get happy.
As these things pop up, if it pops up in anybody that's listening or watching's life, and you feel that kind of like your house is on fire or the fog's coming in, don't hesitate to seek help, and don't hesitate to admit that, like, I can't control, like, it's hard when you can't see your hand in front of your face.
Yeah.
And that's
scary.
where I was at. That's 100%.
Scary.
Last year was the worst year ever. And this year is not last year. So already it's better. Yeah. So that's it. I just wanted to kind of like, be honest and, let everybody know that. Where I'm at.
Thank you for being honest, man. It's never too late to have a happy childhood, folks.
That's right.
I'm doing it right before your eyes. I had a good childhood, and I'm having an even happier one because, like, all the things that I didn't do, that I didn't even think about, or I thought I was above or whatever, like, I'm doing it now with my kids. Like, it's
totally,
never too late.
Yeah.
Like, please get that happiness, man. Like, gun for it, train for it, work for it. It's good.
I think train for it is a great way of putting it, because it is.
You have to.
Right. I mean, dude, I'll tell you what, like, starting
DDP yoga. Yeah. Like,
but even so, I think it takes training to, like, how like you dread starting a diet, but you got to lose the weight. That's how depression and anxiety and shit have been for me, where it's like, I should probably be on something, but I know how this feels and I don't know how that. And it's literally like, dude, a veil, just like, it's like, all right. Like I can
start with 5 pounds.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Or 1.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it on my app that I do where,
yeah,
dude, I mean, the amount of weight he lost in 17 months, it was crazy. But he was like, when I lost a pound, because he had so much, he was like, I'll take it, so that's.
Starting's the hardest thing with everything. So just, like, and if the medicine, or if if whatever you're trying or doing isn't working, talk to a professional about other options, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Talk to
like
multiple professionals.
Yeah, if you don't like
your fourth and fifth opinions.
The people, listen. The therapist I'm talking to, the woman, the doctor I'm working with, they saved my life. They absolutely saved my life, and I give it 1,000,000% to them. And it's that cut and dry. It's literally that cut and dry. I just don't know how much longer I could have went that exhausted. But I'm, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like,
It's such a good thing, man. I've noticed it on podcasts when we started podcasting again.
Yeah.
Because people can mask their voice, but I could see it in their face. And I could definitely see it in your face.
Dude, everybody, you can see everything. That's why I don't play cards, dude. I wear it all.
I was like, he's happier.
Yeah.
Like happier. Like significantly, like, oh, he's doing good. He's doing better. There's doing better. He's doing better. No, I was like, he's happier. Or whatever. More at peace, more something.
I had to take a minute and kind of just like, we go from talking every day to once a week to, we see each other on the podcast, and then you're on tour or I'm doing whatever. I kind of needed to hibernate for a minute and sort of just like deal with my shit. And I'm glad I did.
Do that too. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's,
when you go in the hospital, everybody gets cut off and you got to lay there and you got to heal, it's just you and the docs.
Me and the doc. Yep.
But shout out to your wife, man.
And my dog. I was just about to say, I think Charlie deserves a,
Charlie. Charlie's like, if I could talk.
She's. If I could talk. Charlie's like, where's my ketamine?
No, you love Charlie.
I do. And I love him. Shout out to my wife. Yeah. Great people.
Great people, man.
Yeah.
Great.
And you are too. And all of you are. And I just wanted to let you guys know that. And what are we going to do, man? This is the thing. We have this opportunity, right? We get to talk to people. And when people are sending stuff saying like, thanks for the honest talk about mental health and all, okay, let's catch you up to speed. You know what I mean? So this is it. And
amen,
I hope
brother.
it helps.
It's gonna. Bless you, brother.
Thank you, man. Peace, everybody.